Start up the video with the basics of what I think is the truth about being human, or being a human on this world, Earth. One, we are spiritual beings in a physical body. Two, our thought creates reality. Three, we're all connected. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about free choice today, so I've got to try to keep on the track because I do get very sidetracked. I'm not good at this. Okay, so take those things that I just said, which are very hard to take anyway, because that isn't what we think of ourselves as. It certainly isn't what I have thought of myself as, okay? Now, we're spiritual beings. Our thought creates reality, and we're all connected. But most of us are not aware of this, and we can't and don't operate that way at the present time, and have really never operated that way, as far as I know. At least not for a long, long time. And even if we did it at the beginning, say of time almost, we would have been so young and limited then that we would not have been at full potential anyway. So we would have been learning, a bit like a baby when it's born, has potential to do many things. But while it's a baby, it is limited. And that's what humans were like at the beginning. I think they had the potential and they had the ability for those things that I said, those spiritual beings. They're born spiritual beings, and their thought can create reality. So they create reality just with their thinking, the conscious and the subconscious mind, which is another thing too. And even I don't fully understand all these things. And we're all connected. Well, that's another thing that we don't realise, because we think we're connected if we use a telephone or the internet or a mobile phone. But that is an artificial connection. That's not a true connection at all, really. But it's a fake connection. It's a technological connection. By comparison with the natural connection, it's extremely limited, very deceptive, probably in some ways it is useful and people like it and they seem to need it and they think, oh, it's good that they can communicate. But if the truth is something like what I'm saying, then it really is not anywhere near as good as what it appears to be. But also, I think that it, allowing for the world the way I see it, it really is more of a, it's actually a bad thing, because it's a negative thing in the sense that it can be used for deception, and because you're not really communicating fully, it really probably does more harm than good in many ways. And most of it is used for making things more false. And even when you communicate with someone, like if I was communicating with some of the people I've known in the past who were very deceptive and not really interested in me or me benefiting or benefiting me in any way, that really means that every time I'm communicating them on the phone like I did, and the mobile phone, etc., that really meant that I was just being deceived. So as you can see, whereas if I had the true connection and I was able to really read the thoughts and the real vibration, shall we say, I would have perhaps had a much better idea of what was really going on. And so I wouldn't have been deceived. Then I could have made a clear, correct choice and known where they were really coming from. So I wouldn't have been misdirected in my life and wouldn't have wasted my time. And at least, even if I chose to still communicate with them, at least I would know where I stood. You see what I'm saying? But anyway, this was supposed to be about free choice, right? Now, humans have free choice, and I'm just going to focus on this, even though it may not seem that relevant to some of the things I talk about. But humans are completely controlled, completely mind controlled. Their thoughts are not their own. The thoughts are controlled, they are monitored, and thoughts can be implanted into the human. This is incredulous, but at the same time, we do know, even at our limited earth level, shall we say, by that I mean even in the real world that we live in, that we think is the real world, which it is real, but it is a deceptive world. It is full of lies. It is a matrix that is created for us to make us play. And we do, we play, but it's all fake. And in many ways, I think people could probably see that, because even if you say this is a real world, you have to say, hey, it is a construct. We play by rules. Everything is rules. Everything is right and wrong. Everything is good and bad. Rules. A set play. You're in a set play. You can't do certain things. You can do other things. You get punished if you do something that isn't. It's all controlled. So even if you just buy into this real world and say this is a real world, everything you see is what it is, it's still a control matrix. You know, if you look at it really sensibly and just forget what you've been told and how you perceive it, because we think, oh, it's a control matrix, but it's for our benefit. That doesn't matter. It's still a control matrix. Even if you believe falsely that it is for your benefit, and that everything that is put into operation makes your life better, it is still a restrictive, controlled matrix. Now, if you like it, okay, but it's still that. If you look at it practically, even logically, intellectually, shall we say, because I don't believe in all that, but, you know, because I said we're spiritual beings, we're not meant to be in that intellectual, logical, negative way of thinking, everything right, wrong, always looking at things that way. We're meant to be spiritual beings who create. That's what we do, okay? That's what we're supposed to be doing, but we can't do it now. And we're all connected, naturally, not artificially, not technologically. That's another thing. That's part of the construct of this world. That is part of the control matrix, okay? That is part of the false world, the fake world that we live in. Sure, there's real things, but we're creating those, but we don't know we're creating them, you know. So it's even that is fake if you look at it, because if you're creating something consciously or subconsciously, but you don't know you're creating it, humans don't know what they're doing. They don't know the abilities that they have, that they were meant to have and that they still have, but they don't consciously know they have them. It'd be a bit like, as I've said before, if you could fly, and you were told from the day you're born, no, you walk on two legs. Well, you're never going to fly. You're going to use, technology to fly like we do an aeroplane. And that's just an example, because that's probably too far out for most people. But it's actually probably not as far out as what you think. But because human beings are limitless and they are eternal, they're meant to be, but they're trapped here in this limited technological, not eternal realm where we are confined by time. We think we only live a certain time. We don't think that we go on. And so we buy into the technology because we think that will extend us. This is all a deception. This is the control matrix that tricks us into this. But anyway, I'm going to talk about free choice, because this is the problem. Despite all of this, this is what I think, because we are spiritual beings, we have to be given free choice. And this is where we're all falling down, and where I fell down over my life too, because we are given free choice all the time. We have to be. Otherwise, I think if we weren't given free choice, the control matrix would not be allowed to keep going, because we're spiritual beings. But you see, if we choose to stay in the control matrix, or at least choose to abide by its rules, let it control us, and accept what it tells us instead of using our spiritual nature to say, hey, yeah, sure, that's a rule, but maybe it isn't beneficial. Maybe that was something wrong. Maybe I shouldn't go along with this. Maybe this is not really, maybe I shouldn't be doing these things. Maybe I shouldn't be taking directions from other people who might be more, who are controlled by the control matrix. Maybe I should be thinking for myself. See, every spiritual human being should really think for themselves. They should know. They shouldn't have to need rules and constraints, because they should just know what is the correct thing. And if every spiritual being knew the truth and acted that way, we would not have any need of all these things. We would not need to be controlled and monitored and regulated and have to have security against other human beings, which are really which we're really connected to and which we're creating with. You see, it's all a big chaos, and this is what this world is. But as I said before, we're given free choice, and this was the thing that I'm trying to get to, if I can keep my thinking, because I'm no different to anyone else. I'm subject to the control matrix. I'm subject to the mind control. I'm subject to this false reality. I'm subject to the mind parasites. The mind parasites are where a thought comes into your head that is really not your thought, and you don't want it, but you entertain it because it comes in and you think it is your thought. This is the matrix. This is not you. This is where they take over your spiritual being. Every time you get a bad negative thought, that is not really you, but you think it is you because you bought into this reality. You bought into the fake world, because it's very hard not to. I bought into it all my life. Now, I'm going to try to explain this if I can. You're not going to get it, and I don't get it fully myself, but you might pick up some tidbits that might help you to where you start to think about it and say, well, yeah, that's a possibility. And yeah, that does happen to me. That's happened to me too. That's why I'm not going to hit you with all the information that I've now received, because I've received so much information from other people and I've pieced it together. So I'm getting a clear picture, but if I don't want to be one of those people that does a video like that, because I'm going to take it from the start of someone like myself, like I was, and still am to some extent, only a limited time ago, very short time ago, to where I knew nothing. I believed totally in what was in front of me. I believed everything I saw on my appliances, around me, what I was told. I trusted the society I lived in, shall we say. I believed it all. And even if I disagreed with things, I thought, oh, it doesn't matter. She'll be fine. It's a small thing. It doesn't matter. Now I realise everything matters, because small things become big things. If you let every little small thing pass as a spiritual being, which we all have done, and I've done it all my life, that small thing, 10, 20 years down the track, will no longer be small. It will have overtaken human beings. Every time you let something slide where you say, oh, that seems like a good idea, but I don't know, I think I'll let it go because someone or something else says it is a good idea. Maybe it's good to put the extra camera there or do this or that. I'm just trying to use examples, but, I'm not pointing the finger at any particular thing. But I do think it is everywhere. Quite frankly, it is everywhere. There's no point in me using individual examples, because it's everywhere, because it's a whole matrix. It's everything. It's not just one thing. It's everything. It's everything from the smallest to the biggest. That's why I think people make a mistake on focusing on individual things, as we all do. And I've done that too. Or get obsessed with a certain idea or a certain problem. It's not just one problem. It's everything, because it's out of our control. And the technology that we accept also means that we are allowing the mind control, the mind parasites. We're actually saying, yes, this is what I'm talking about, the free choice, okay? Humans have to be given free choice because they're spiritual beings. Because look at it this way. Think about this. And there again, you'll have to come from the premise that we're in a controlled society. Now, I think most people would say, hey, of course we're in a controlled society. How could we not be in a controlled society? We have systems. We have departments. We have rules. We have regulations. If we don't abide by those, we get punished, or we're restricted, or we have to pay this or pay. Of course, we are in a controlled society, okay? You might say, oh, well, yes, but I like that. I think that's good for me. That's your right to say that, but you're still in a controlled society. You have a police department, you have all departments, you have governments, you have laws, you have, and it's changed down through the years if you look at it, and they change those according to what suits. So there again, you're in a control matrix. Individuals, if you actually think that you're important as an individual, I am nothing as an individual. I do not have any power as an individual in this matrix, none at all. Even some of your top people have very little power because they can be replaced very easily. As you see, our Prime Minister was replaced only not long ago. I was hardly aware of it. You know, just gone for not, I'm sure there were reasons. But what I'm saying is no one is replaceable, because even important individuals are only important while they serve the matrix. Now, if you are a spiritual being and you create reality with your thinking, and you're all connected to other spiritual beings, then you are important if you were using that, and if you were aware of that, and you do have then some control over things. But we do not have that because we're not aware of it, we're not able to use it, we're not able to operate it fully. Those that even are aware of it, as I've come to be aware of it, are still extremely limited. I can't wave a magic wand, no, because, you know, I'm not connected and I'm operating in the matrix, and the matrix has power too. It has a physical power. And it can affect my thinking. It can make me negative. It can bring me down in 2 seconds if I don't obey the rules. It can make me depressed. It can make me sad. And this creates, because my thought creates reality, this then creates a negative reality. And that means then they've got the control. You're back in the matrix, you're under the control. You see, that's how it works. But we have free choice. But if we all knew this, and we were all combined, and we threw away the things that are hindering us, even the technology, which is a sidetrack and not to our benefit, we would then use the free choice, and we would have because we have the free choice anyway, but we always make the choice that the matrix directs us to, usually, because that's our limited information, you see. In other words, if I'm told something happened around the corner from me by the matrix, and when I say by the matrix, that means if I see it on the TV, or if I see something happening, I believe that to be true. And so my reaction to that will be a genuine reaction, and it might make me depressed, or if something happens to me, you know, if it brings me down, if I'm continually surrounded by stress, you know, then that brings me down. That is the matrix, that is the control thing. But but humans have free choice with information and stuff, right? It has to be given to us. The free choice has to be given to, this is what I've discovered, is that free choice has to be given to us. Now you would say, and this is what I was trying to figure out, like, okay, the matrix controls me, right? The matrix wants to keep me down at a limited level, to where I'm not aware that I'm a spiritual being, to where I'm not aware that my thought is creating reality, good and bad, mainly bad because the matrix is negative, and that I'm connected to other human beings. And there again, I've been alone in most of my life, very isolated. You see, so the matrix has really tricked me. But I have free choice. And why would I be given free choice when they already have me under full control, right? They can do what they want almost with me at a physical level. They can, they could hurt me. They can control my mind by what's around me and by what I see and everything that I think, touch, and feel and hear and all this stuff, the senses, because the five senses is the matrix. That's our real world, our fake matrix real world. That's not the spiritual world. That's not what we really are, but that's what we are in. We're in the body, and we come into this physical matrix world in a physical body. You see, a bit like an avatar type thing, I haven't seen that, but that is probably the gist of it, okay? Because that's what I'm just getting to, is we have to be given free choice. We have to be shown the truth. Now, why is this? If the matrix already has us under full control, why do they have to show us the truth? Because we are spiritual beings, so we have to have the choice. But they try to make it so that we will not see the truth and will not make the right choices. But they show us the truth all the time, but we don't recognize it as truth because we live in a duality, fake world that everything is in reverse. If I watch something on the TV, a movie, I say that's false, that's fantasy, whereas that is showing you truth, because there's probably more truth in that movie. The more bizarre it is, the more truthful it is likely to be of what is really outside the matrix, shall we say, or what is really going on, or how far. Oh, like put it this way, right? Like last night I didn't watch it, but I saw people wanting to clone their pets, and they can do that now. Well, of course they can do it. They've cloned Dolly the sheep years and years ago, a whole sheep. You mean to say that, think about that. Think about that. And that was years ago. And don't forget, as I've said before, everything is probably 50 to 100 years behind even what you eventually see, because science doesn't give you every single thing as it happens. It can't. It has to, even, yourself, even if you get a pill, it's 10 years before it comes on the market. And that's only what they tell you, because like I say, all this is always, it's all false, and it's all, but they have to tell you, because otherwise you haven't got the free will. And then I believe that there could be intervention, or the matrix almost closed down, shall we say, because that would mean that you violated a kind of, you could almost say that these laws we have in the matrix are phony, bad laws for us. But in the real bigger scope of things, there's almost like a universal law that if the spiritual being is a creator, then that spiritual being has to be shown the truth and has to be given a choice. Otherwise, the universe almost, you could say, could close it down. But while humans go along with the matrix and see are shown the truth, but say, oh, that's not true, or I don't believe that, or yeah, I'm going to go along with the matrix, well, then they've opted to keep that fake world going, and they've thrown away their choice for freedom, you could say, in a way, if you look at it that way. But I'm saying that if you look at the world, we have that free choice, and we have to be given it, even though we are prisoners in a way, because if we're controlled and we're not aware of what's really going on, in other words, if I'm a spiritual being but I don't know I'm a spiritual being, and I think I'm just a physical being that's limited and come about by accidental evolution, and don't believe in the real history, what I now believe to be the real history. See, there are, even with the history of this world, there are histories, as I said before. There's the history that we believe, the one like where we evolved, and then there's we evolved from an ape or something like that. Everything happened randomly. We discovered continents, man moved and did this and that. And that's our history. And I'm not saying that that is not true, but I'm saying it's only one aspect and a very limited, and it's also a very recent history. And I'm saying that there's even not much evidence for that, only what we're told. If you look at your history books, it's like we have limited proof of it all, but we believe it, and it is true probably, right? But I'm saying we have we don't have a videotape of it all, right? We don't have film of it all. And even that can be forged, as we well know too now anyway, but we don't even have that, because we have to be shown the truth. But when we see an alternative history, or even if we heard about what we would consider not real stuff, like, I'm trying to use examples like Roswell, right? Where a few aliens come or whatever, okay? There's very little evidence, but there is some evidence, but little, and we dismiss it because we believe the narrative we're given. We have a choice. But what I'm trying to say is that we should extend ourselves, because there's just as much evidence for these other things, and for the false history and for the alternative histories, as our real history. In reality, they are all correct, I think. And they all fit together, just like the Bible also even is a narrative. And it also has much historical truth in it. And the alternative, the civilizations of old, the gods of old, that also, I think, has truth in it. And there's evidence for all these things, just as much evidence as what there is for our so-called real history, except that we dismiss it. If we find a statue of something really old, that's evidence, but we don't say, oh, because we've found it. We say that doesn't fit our history that we have now. So although that's evidence, physical evidence, we'd dismiss it, because we're told to dismiss it, because it doesn't fit the narrative we have of our so-called real history. But our real history has just this little physical evidence. Like, we base that on a few remnants of things. We base our evolution on finding a few pieces of skeletons. It's very limited. Even our real history is what I'm trying to say, is there's not that much difference between all these histories and the evidence, if you really look at it. And because most of the way you join it all together, that's all been lost, and there's so little left, because everything has been deliberately destroyed. You know, that's why we can't find all these things. That's why we don't really, we only have our limited false history. But anyway, the whole thing was about free choice, so I have to throw that in. But the free choice seems to be essential, because although it'd be a bit like this, right? I'm a guard, right? I'm a guard. I'm a control person. I have control over another person, right? I have subdued them. I've locked them in a room. I've got the physical power. Okay, I've got control of that person. But because that person is a spiritual being, I have to still give that person free choice. And so I have to trick them into staying into that room, or I have to fill them with so much fear. I have to fill them with so much false narrative, so much fear, and so much, how should I say, you know, I might have things in the room where they're like where they're physically restrained, shall we say, right? As we are in this matrix, because we are physically and mind controlled and restrained, really. as spiritual beings. But the trick of that, I think, is like this, even though it's beyond me too. The trick of it is like this, right? The trick of it is like this. If you were a spiritual being and your thought can move reality, create reality. In other words, your thought influences the material world. You know, a bit like somewhere I seem to have heard in some Bible or something where if you think you can move the mountain, you can, that type of thing. In other words, if you really had that power, but you didn't know you had it, you were told by your controller, from the day you were born, he's put you in the room, me, supposing I'm that controller, I put you in the room and I tell you, I got you tied up. You're dependent on me for your food, clothing and water. You are nothing. You are just a being that was created the way you're told you're created. You're not spiritual at all. You do not have any power. Your thought, your thinking means nothing. It's just something that goes on inside your head. The only thing that counts is the physical world. And I have got you tied up. I have control over you. I control whether you get food, water. You cannot break those chains by your thought. You wouldn't even consider it. You're like, I am physically restrained. I am physically trapped in this room, this world. And that's like it is, because the humans don't know that they can break the chains, that their thinking is what even is keeping them trapped, because that is the trick of the matrix, is for you to not know that you are trapped, but that you can escape, and that you do have the power, that you actually are creating the matrix, but through mind control, they are letting you create your own prison and your own trap. It's very devastating. And then if you do become aware of it at some point, you are still, like myself, trapped in it. And it's even worse in some ways, because it's like saying, hey, we all could walk away, we could escape, we could be free, we could be spiritual beings. We don't have to be confined by all this. This is merely a trap of the matrix, a trap of our mind that has been put onto us, as it was through me for a whole lifetime, and still is, because if I can't get through to the other human beings, then I cannot get the power going. It's like if I'm connected to other human beings, but they're disconnected and they're connected to the internet, then I'm like saying, hey, I want to be free and I want you to be free with me. We can all fly out of here. But if I can't get them to see that, because they are so, like I have been for a lifetime, so trapped by the matrix, believing only the real world and believing only the physicality and believing only the technology, believing everything that is around them, which is all fake. It is all the control matrix. As I've said before, I wasn't going to go here because I'm talking about free choice, right? Because we are spiritual beings, we have to be given this free choice. That is why we are shown the truth every second of the day, but we don't see it as truth. We see the lies as truth and the fake reality as truth, but when we see, they have to show it to us, because otherwise, why would I, if I am I'm controlling you, you're the prisoner, you're my prisoner, why would I show you the way out or what is really going on when I really want to control you? That is because I have to, because if I don't, they will close me down. But while I can trick you and almost get you to stay in that room as a prisoner voluntarily, because you're full of fear, because you believe only in that room, in that reality. You believe in those chains. You believe that you need me for food and water. You believe that I have full control over you. You don't believe that as a spiritual being you can change that reality with your thinking. You don't believe that you could change that room and walk out of that room. You don't believe that because you don't think you're a spiritual being. So you believe in your trappings. You believe what I've told you, that I've got you chained, you're stuck in the room, I have full control over you. And while you believe that, you are trapped there. But I have to still show you the truth, because otherwise I will be eliminated. Because even though I am your God in a way, because I'm controlling you, I am not the ultimate thing. I still have to abide by the rules of the universe. This is what I'm trying to say. This is what I see. Because I'm like, why would we be shown the truth? Why would we be shown the real truth and what's really going on if that if the God being or the control system doesn't have to? And for me, it's like you wouldn't do that. You would not show your prisoner the key to the door and dangle the key in front of him and say, this is what's really going on, here is the key. You wouldn't do that unless you had to. But they do it in such a way, the control system and the being that controls the earth, and when I say being, obviously it's not, it might be, as I've said before, ruled by one or two beings that are like the gods in a way, but they still have many, many minions. So, because you couldn't do it otherwise. So I don't want to go there. Look, there is an alternative history with that, okay? And I have not went there. In these videos so far, I'm sorry to get angry, but I'm getting the interference from the matrix right now. So it means I then have to get angry and have to be forcible, as you can hear it. I don't want to do that, because I don't want to shove this down people's throat as though I'm an I am and know it, because I'm telling you straight, all my life I have been deceived by the matrix. I personally have went along with it all and have created this bad matrix as much as anyone else, maybe even more so, because look, I'll explain it. I'll be personal, even though I don't want to, because it's embarrassing for me. But I'm going to embarrass myself and degrade myself in a way by saying, look, most of my life, I thought, hey, like you can see, I'm a female, right? But most of my life, I was like, oh, I'm not comfortable in this female body. Maybe I was really meant to be male. Oh, no, but no, not that. No, maybe I was homosexual. I have not ever practiced these things, by the way, but this is how I thought. So what you think about your gender and what you think determines what you are. And then at another stage, finally, when I thought I had evolved to the full, I'm like, oh no, I'm not either gender. I'm not really homosexual, I'm not male, I'm not female. I am non-sexual, or I am and I've just learnt recently that these seem to be quite acceptable now. And this is how I thought most of my life. I now realise this also is another thing where you have a choice. But see, I thought that was my choice. I thought that that I was different to a lot of other people, because I always thought, you know, I was brought up to man, woman. And I always thought, well, just I'm different, yeah. But I didn't think it was a good thing. I thought it was a bad thing, because I thought, how can you manage to be different in this world when everything is usually heterosexual? But what I am trying to say is, I was deceived by the matrix with all this. It's all a deception. It's all not right. Because really, I'm a spiritual being that creates reality. And my physical demeanour actually is the trick. It's the control mechanism. It's the physicality to where I get, oh, I don't like my body, or I don't like this, or I think that this is the confusion, because really, you're a spiritual being. And that's right. So I became obsessed with that. And then finally saying, oh, well, look, I'm neither one nor the other. I'm this and that. Well, that probably is closer to a spiritual being, but I didn't do that either. I was still like, oh, I was still obsessed with the physical body. So it was still like, oh, I am a certain gender, but maybe I'm I don't know what the words are, what they describe it. Maybe I'm maybe I'm somewhere between these things. Maybe I'm, and also I was starting to think, oh, I don't like the body. I wish it was something different. You see? You see where I'm coming from. You see what I'm trying to say. And this is the world we live in now, where even as a physical being, we are being confused on a great thing to where we think that it's so important that we have to change things and that we are not satisfied and that we don't. But, you know, I will say this, and this is just my view. And I think if you listen to me, you'll say, well, look, we don't think that way. And I didn't either. Like I say, I've been there. I've been all the different genders and the different way of looking at myself and feeling it. I felt it from a child. You know, I did not feel particular. You know, I started out feeling that I was, say, female, which is what I really am at a physical level. But very soon after, I started to think differently about the male sex and this and it's a propaganda like it is nowadays, where we're sort of, you know, like where it's fashionable or where we see everyone else behaving this way or saying, oh, it's good not to be one thing or the other because that's so limiting. You don't want to be just a man or a woman. That's closing your mind off. That's limiting you. You should be able to be whatever you want. We shouldn't have these distinctions between the sexes and all this sort of stuff. And I would have bought into that. And I thought it myself before it was fashionable, which is interesting. Maybe my thoughts on that were passing on to others at this point and contributing to it because maybe others were doing it too. As I say, our thought creates reality. But anyway, I don't want to go, it drains me, as you can see, to even talk about it. But now I look at it in a different way and say, this is the matrix. And I say to myself, hey, all these things are all well and good. And it appears to be freedom. It appears to be freedom. We have a choice, you see. But I'm now going and thinking, yeah, I have that choice to be whatever I want. I can change my body. I can do this. I can do that. You know, if I got the money, of course, I suppose. You know, but even to think it, even to say, oh well, look, I'm not going to see myself as this traditional female or this traditional man or this. Look, all I am trying to say is this: that if I look at it in a more broad level now, apart from what, you know, I'm being told now to be free and to be any gender, anything I want, that's all very well. And look, there are some people who probably can't escape it, okay? But the fact that it's now a lot more mainstream and that everyone's starting to not so much be that way, but think that way and think that it's okay. Look, you still have to say to yourself, why is this part of the matrix? And this is all I'm getting at. And as I'm saying, we're spiritual beings and we need to keep that natural spiritual thing. This is what I'm trying to get to. This is the bottom line for me. I personally think that the only way you can keep the natural spiritual being, which the matrix is trying to ease out of, I think, into the more artificial and into the more, to keep more control. The only way you can do that is by natural breeding, you see. And this is where I think we're being tricked, because aside from what denomination you want to see yourself as, you know, like personally me, if I saw myself as a man right now, and I feel that I think more like a man and that I would be more comfortable in a male body. And I've been there and thought these things, okay? So don't think I'm being judgmental, because it's been me. I'm saying now, even if I sat here right before you now, and I say to you, I would prefer to be a man and have a man's body. I say I'm never going to do anything to change myself, because even if I could, and even if I was younger, particularly if I was younger, I'm not going to change it, because I now see the bigger picture, that means that I would cease to be able to reproduce. And if I and others do that, then, as I say, I would not be able to reproduce a spiritual human being. So I'm killing off the human being, you see, and I cannot be guilty to do that. As a spiritual being, I can't do that, even if I feel terribly uncomfortable in my body. Even if I hate my physical female body and want to be something else and want to be this or that, I will not do that because of that thing, because I will be killing off the human race. That's how I see it. So that's the bottom line for me, you see. So I will suffer even if it kills me, because as a spiritual being, I'm going to go on past this physical body anyway. So I would be trapped and tricked by the matrix. I would be trapped and tricked by the matrix if I did that. Sorry about the matrix trying to stop me telling you this. And this is another thing. The matrix does not want people to know. The matrix has to tell you the truth, but it doesn't want you to see it as truth. It doesn't want you to perceive the truth as truth. It has to let you have the truth. It has to give you the free choice, but it doesn't. And it wants you to have the free choice and for you to think you're great and free because you've got the free choice. But it wants you to see not the truth. It wants you to not perceive the truth as truth. It wants you to see what the matrix wants you to see as the truth, the fake world, the truth that will direct you in the direction the matrix wants you to be, because it's a control system, because I am the controller. I want control over you. I don't want you to be a free spiritual human being. I want you to be a controlled human being, and perhaps even less and less human, because I want you to not be aware that you're spiritual. I want you to not know that you have spiritual powers. I want you to think that the power is in your hand, in your mobile phone, in your technology, because that is more control, because I rule the technological world. See, that's how it is. It's hard to deal with, yes, and it means that, yes, as a spiritual being, you might have to suffer and be uncomfortable, and because the body really isn't that important, but it is important in the sense that if you are to continue the spiritual human race, then you must breed naturally. You see, this is the bottom line I'm getting at. So if we have too many different denominations, because if you had, as I've said before, and this is nothing, because I've been there, I've been all these things, and I still think that way, but like I say, I would not physically do it because it goes against the human race as a whole down the track. You see what I'm saying? So no matter what I want for myself, if I don't want to have babies, if I want to be a man, want to be a woman, want to be half, want to be this or that, and there again, I will say this, and this is something that even people who make these choices have to consider. You can be a man and make yourself look like a woman. You can be a woman like myself and make myself look like a man, and I might feel more comfortable looking like that. And you can change the body by plastic surgery. You can manipulate, you can take even chemicals and things that might alter the body slightly, etc. But you are still never going to be 100% female if you do that, or 100% male. You will be what the matrix wants, a half, a fake human being. I like some of these fake human beings, I admit it. I like the look of them. I'll tell you that now. And I have nothing against them, and I could easily want to do that myself. But I'm saying that's really the truth anyway. You are not really 100% authentic of what you think anyway. Sure, okay, yes, the mind does rule. So what you think you are is the thing. But what I'm saying is that, is it what you think, or is it what the matrix is making you think? Because if you are indoctrinated from the day you're born with negativity by the matrix, You will look, I don't care what anyone says. I have seen a lot of homosexual people. I have been there myself. And they all have certain backgrounds, most of them. So this business of saying you're born a certain way, it is not true. You become a certain way by the world that is around you. You take the baby, even the old saying, give me the child for the first 5 or 6 years and I give you the man. This is actually quite true. We are only a product of what is around us. No one is born with full knowledge of anything. A baby does not have knowledge of sexuality or anything. You can't be born gay, this, that, whatever. You can't be. It's just not possible. It's ridiculous that they put this sort of stuff forward. But yes, you can be, if you are in a certain environment, yes. And also it doesn't matter, even if you show symptoms at say 3 or 4 years age, that you might, as say a girl, prefer to do some things that a boy might do. If you might prefer to play with a truck as opposed to a doll, that doesn't matter either. And the same if a boy wants to play with a doll now and again, it doesn't matter. This is still too early. But if your parents encourage that, or your environment encourages, or you get traumatized, and look, the world today, I do not think personally, I do not think, because it is a control matrix, and I say this and believe it, I do not think that there are very many families or babies born that are not subject to trauma and to influence from the matrix. I do not think there is any perfect environments. I don't care how rich you are, I don't care what you've got. I do not think there are any perfect environments for anyone. And I think this is why the world is in such a mess and why we are all so screwed. And this has been my life. Like I say, I've been, and I still think this way, but it's just that I'm aware now that I've been tricked and that it's false. That I'm just been a victim of my surroundings. And I went along with it and I've not seen the truth. I've never, ever stopped and sort of said, is there something more behind this? You know, am I being directed to not do the thing that might be best for my human race and for my spiritual well-being? And I say, yes, that's been the whole thing. Always directing me away from what would benefit my fellow human beings and my spiritual development and the human race down the track. It's no good saying, I emphasise this, that, oh, it doesn't matter if I right now choose to be a man when I'm really a woman. It does matter, because it means that, one thing, I've eliminated the possibility of passing on my spiritual stuff by breeding. Now, okay, if I've been indoctrinated to think that I'm not maternal and that I shouldn't be a mother and that I want to go and work and do other things like a man, or some things where I haven't got time for that, I'm going to believe that to be true. And I'm going to live my life accordingly. I'm not going to reproduce, and I'm not going to be a mother, and I might even change myself into the other sex or decide to be a halfway sex. Like I say, whichever way you look at it, it's not genuine either way, because I've already said that. Look, I might like people who are half-half, right? I might find them very attractive. I do. Physically, I do. I'll admit that. And there's plenty of them around, even some that you would not know, because not everyone is going to, say what they've done to themselves or what's been done to them or whatever. But that doesn't change the fact that it is not a good idea for the human race, evolution-wise, in the future. So this business of what we do now, where we say, what makes me happy in my lifetime, what makes me happy now, and I'm all important, the individual is important, I'm so important that it doesn't matter. If you actually knew that you were being controlled and that you were tricked, you would say, yes, of course it matters, I'm not going to do that, even though I still am going to fight for the rest of my life against what's been indoctrinated into me. In other words, I'm still probably going to feel uncomfortable as a human being in this body or in this skin, because that indoctrination has taken place. over a lifetime. So it is going to be so I'm going to be uncomfortable, yeah. And I'm not, and it would seem the easy option if I had the money and if I was not frightened or whatever to actually change things. You see what I'm saying? Or to live that lifestyle even. But if I was like, say, almost like the God presence that does rule this matrix, and I could look down from above and say, hey, look where this little human being is going to go in 50 years' time. Look where the human race is going to be in another 100 years. Whoa, they're going to be extinct. Whoa, they're not going to be able to reproduce. Whoa, they're going to be so confused and so uncomfortable in their own skins. They're going to be mutations of themselves when they've already been controlled and manipulated so much. They will, be something that you wouldn't recognize. If you could see that, you would be like me, be going, whoa, oh, I've got to stop. I've got to just stop and think. And I've got to just stop and do nothing even. And I've got to say, hey, I'm a spiritual being, so the body doesn't count that much. This physical world doesn't count as much as what I think. Because, it's like going over a cliff but not being able to see that cliff. You can't see it. You think that it doesn't matter what you do in the present. What we are all doing in the present matters extremely much, because that present, it's happened in the past, it's happened before. Even the history, they say history repeats, people say that's rubbish, or even if they say it's true, it won't happen now. But if human beings always go down the path of advancing themselves only in certain ways, only using technology and medicine to do negative things, and this is not our fault because we're not even given, as I say, if you're only given a little bit of information, that's saying if you're only given a little bit of information, that can be more dangerous than having no information, because you'll act on that. Whereas if you have no information, you at least might start to just think for yourself. And this is what I've always said. This is why I don't personally believe in the education and stuff, because I think that if you're educated but only get a little bit of information, whether it be true or not, doesn't matter. If it's only a little bit, it's going to be more harmful to the child. And it would be better if, this is just me, I think it would be better if all children just played in the street all day, had a free mind, picked up information themselves and thought more. I think they would be better off. I know I would have been better off. I'm not saying there aren't some benefits to going to school, but they're usually more social rather than what you actually learn. And considering the amount of time you're there too, it's such a lot of time to be sitting in a classroom listening to a limited history. There again, what I've said, a limited history. How can you possibly really gain anything by it? And you spend all that time using the technology, limited information, not even giving you all the alternative histories to where you at least would say, hey, yeah, I'm in this matrix. I mean, can you imagine you're sitting in the classroom with your computer, with all these rules in this school. You're really a spiritual being that creates reality with your thinking, and you're connected to the other human beings. You're sitting in this fake classroom with this fake computer. It's a control system for us, for our children, for us as spiritual beings. It limits, it does not expand. And we think the limitation is our education and that it's the truth. But we're given a free choice. We didn't have to accept the education. We didn't have to go into all these systems. We have. This is how I see it now. Because the real truth is so simple. We're spiritual beings in a physical body, but we're spiritual beings. Our thought creates reality and we're all connected. We don't need any more than that, really. That's how I see it now. But because that's been denied us and because we're all disconnected, we're all in chaos, just like me, like I've been all my life, and confused. Confused about even the physical world. Total confusion. Total trickery, total mind control. And then again, if you know that the beings that control the thing are even technologically so much more advanced than what the technology that we have, and that we don't see it, but it's still there and it's still used to control the matrix. And see, we're only given technology as it comes about to direct us more in that artificial direction. A bit like, as I started at the start about the cloning of animals and Dolly the sheep, they're now bringing it, talking about it more, because they want humans to go down that path. They want them now to see that technology that's been there for a long time, because the God that controls things would have to be at least 1,500 years ahead technologically, so figure that out yourself. My personal belief is that the technological beings that control this world use humans in every single way. They know that they have power, but the humans do not think they have any power. They don't think they're spiritual beings. They don't think their thinking creates reality. They don't think they create anything. They think they are limited physical human beings. The technological beings that control everything, they are 1,500 years at least ahead. Could be more. They've been around before us, so they have vast knowledge, vast experience, okay? But this is my argument. If the technology is so better than the spiritual human beings, why do they need to control us and subdue us and deny us the truth? But they still have to show us the truth. So that means that we do have power and do have free choice and have to be shown that. It's a bit of a joke, but that seems to be the truth. And that is because we were put here, to advance, and we were meant to be very advanced spiritually, but instead we have, by choice, allowed ourselves to be controlled by the technological beings and by the technology and by the physical world. And we contribute to everything that's in it with our thinking, but we do not know this. This is the truth denied us, and we can't get control of it. Now, I say the technological beings use us in every way, but I personally think that the way that they now, like I mentioned, all the genders and all the reproduction and stuff like that, personally, and it's been shown to me, and it's been shown to you too, but you're just not seeing it, just like I wouldn't have seen it only not long ago. In other words, if I see a movie that tells me that there's an advanced race of beings, technologically advanced, much more advanced than the simplistic little human beings, but this might not be totally presented in the story about the humans. So, oh yeah, the humans would be in the story, no doubt. Okay. But they're much more advanced and they're very impressive, and you have the little humans. But these are more technologically advanced beings, even though that might not be stressed so much in the film, but it is still put in there probably. But technology, you see, is very advanced, but it can still be limited at the level that, like this, right? Spiritual human beings are limitless, and they are what you would call immortal, because they keep going on, because they're creators, that they cannot be destroyed. They can be subdued and pushed down to such an extent to where it is possible to perhaps destroy them. But that is only if they allow that, because they themselves are really already spiritual beings. Spirituality is limitless and cannot be destroyed. They are mortal, really. But the technological beings, they could live for They could live for thousands and thousands and thousands of years and been here for thousands and millions and billions of years before us. But even though they would appear to be immortal to us because we believe we're only here for a limited time, whatever, okay? They are really not immortal. But by our standards, if they could live for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, and I'm talking about really astronomical amounts of time, which would seem like immortality to us, if they keep going with their technology, and this is what I think is shown, I've seen it in movies, okay? I say they have to show you. I pick it up now. I didn't pick it up before. Their technology is very, very advanced, but the more you advance technology, you cannot reproduce naturally at some point. Technological beings end up reproducing technically. It's a bit like clones, right? Cloning things. You can clone things, but if you clone things, you lose something each time you clone, and you lose the spirituality, right? This is my belief. If you even reproduce artificially, you lose something. That's why I say we shouldn't diverge from things, even if we feel that we want to, or even if we feel unhappy in what we've got, because it does destroy some of the spiritual being's spirituality. And that means that you're limiting your lifespan, you see. When I say lifespan, I mean your spiritual lifespan. I don't mean this physical lifespan, because that is not what a spiritual being is. A spiritual being merely has a physical body in their spans, okay? You see, it's hard, I know. But what I'm saying is that I think that the technological beings are on the verge of extinction themselves. They have become so technologically advanced that they can't reproduce naturally. They reproduced technologically, and then finally that gets to a point where the technology means that they can't reproduce. In other words, I believe that the beings that control this world are a dying race, but they still control us, and we are not a dying race. Well, we are, but we're not dead yet, whereas they actually cannot reproduce naturally or even technologically. They got to that point to where after astronomical amounts of time, they may have been the first here even. I mean, it's sad in a way, but at the same time, humans have to realize that if they stay here on this earth and don't realize that they're spiritual beings, and they give up their natural reproductive right, which means they will be limited and they will become more technological. That will allow the technological beings to use us to get some of our spirituality, shall we say, in order for them to combine with us. This is the danger of technology. Interface with us, shall we say. These words they use, which I had no comprehension, but I'm getting it now, and be very aware when people say these things. To combine with technology, you must interface with technology. That is them taking over so they can get back their ability to reproduce, because they're a dying race. They will become extinct. But in the process of that, as human beings, unfortunately, if we do that to help them, we will become the dying race. We will become extinct, because spiritual human beings do not need that, and that is the opposite. You are being used as a vehicle for the technological beings to get back their ability to stop their race from dying. It's not our fault that they went too far technologically and are now dying. That was their choice, just like it is our choice to go with technology and do the same thing that they've done. It doesn't matter how advanced they are. They're a dying race. Technology kills a spiritual human being. Human beings are organic. Even their body is organic. We all know that anyway. And they're spiritual. But even their body is organic. Technology is not organic. Once you go away from organic, you will lose your ability to reproduce naturally. You will be able to technologically reproduce for a period of time, but eventually that period of time will lead to you dying out. Technology is limited. Spiritual human, organic human beings are limitless. They're immortal. The others are not immortal. They might appear to be. They might impress you that their technology can expand the physical lifespan, which it can, but it is a deception. I don't know whether I put it across well. It's hard for me to even get my head round. And it's distressing for me in a way, because it shouldn't be like this. And humans should at least know the real choices they're making. And this is where they're deceived, because they're shown the truth, but they don't see it as truth. So they think it's okay to keep going technologically. And they think it's okay to do this and that. I'm sad to say that we're in such a deceptive world, that where you think you are free to say, oh, I can be this, do that it's all just a big deception to stop you from being the spiritual, immortal human being that you are, and will eventually lead to our extinction when it should be their extinction, because they've made the choice for technology. We really never needed it. We never needed it, because how would we need it if we're spiritual beings and our thought creates reality and we're all connected? We really don't need it. We never needed it. We had everything, but we just were not allowed to develop naturally or organically, shall we say. Even at the physical level, we are organic. We are not meant to be artificial. Our body, if it wasn't dominated by this artificial matrix that tries to even destroy our body, even our organic bodies are under bombardment by the physical artificial matrix. And I think we do not realise how much that is the case. And so therefore we then start to dislike our bodies, not just at a gender level, which I was talking about, but even at a physical health level. But this is because we are not in the spiritual world that we are meant to be in. We are in the artificial technological matrix world, which destroys our organic human body and takes over our mind and puts false thoughts and false indoctrination and false information into our head. And the technology itself, this is something that just come to me quite recently, because I do not understand science, but it's what you call subliminal messages right now. Most people have probably heard of this. That means that you could be watching something on the TV, for instance, and the people on there might be saying something in our language like I am now. But subliminally, at a subconscious level, they are sending other information in as well. That's the mind implants. And you let it. We'd all let it. I've let it for a lifetime and still doing it. It can't be helped. If I want to watch even a movie, I still have to be very careful because there's truth, but then there's this mind implant of the false stuff. And it's subliminal. It's a bit like, you'd have to look into that yourself, because even I do not fully understand it, but it's quite basic in a way. But I'm not a clever person. I'm not one of your more academic people at all. I know this all to be truth, but I'm keeping it basic because that's how I am. I'm not a complicated person. I'm a simple person like the rest of you that's just been indoctrinated and mind controlled and is basically operating in a false reality. But it's very hard for me to look in front of me and say, hey, it's false. I know it is, but it's a bit like, I see it, I've always believed it, I touch it, I see it, I smell it, I taste it, I hear it. How can it not be real? It's not real in the sense that it's all a program. It's a bit like if you go to cross the road and you have to press the lights before you can cross. You can't just cross on your own, you have to cross at the lights. A control matrix. That's at a very simple level. At a bigger level, we're being controlled every single way, in every single thing we do. And why is this? because we really should be controlling our own world or our own environment even, but we're not. And they have to bring down every single thing on us, which tells me that we must have more abilities than what we think, because otherwise, if we were so limited and what we really think we are, they wouldn't have to do all these things. They wouldn't need so much control. They could just leave us here and we'd be as pathetical as what we really are just naturally. But you see, we're not. We are creating the reality for them. We're creating, with our thinking, the reality they want, not the reality that we really need for ourselves to survive as a human race. They're creating the matrix. The beings that control this world are creating through us. We're the creators. They're creating the reality they want for themselves so they can survive, because they're a dying race. You know, but we're not creating, we think we're creating a better world for ourselves. If some technological thing comes along tomorrow where it says, oh, you can live another 20 or 30 years, we'll jump at it because we'll think, oh, that's great. Because we're buying into the fake matrix. Sure, we might even get that 20 or 30 years, but we're meant to have forever. They're the ones who are limited, the technological beings. They're the dying race, I believe. And even if they aren't dying, technology is still limited. Even if they weren't dying, even if they were able to keep going, technology. This is what I think, though. I think they are a dying race from the movies I've seen, because I believe that the stuff that we see has to be shown to us. So now I'm like looking for it, and I say, hey, if it has to be shown, if we have to be given a choice, it's there. Whereas in the past, I would have looked at that. I probably wouldn't have even looked at it. I probably would have said, I'm not going to even look at that movie or that thing because it's too far-fetched. Now I say, yeah, it's too far-fetched for the perception that they've told me that I'm supposed to have. But in reality, they have to show you the truth, because we're spiritual beings. If we are not given the choice, it's almost like there probably is another power, higher, shall we say, that can close down this whole matrix, that could, you know, intervention, you could almost say, a bit like if humans were going to be wiped out. You know, like if the whole human race was going to be wiped out tomorrow by other beings, there would have to be probably intervention by beings that would say they're spiritual beings, they cannot be destroyed. This goes against a law of the universe or of nature, or whatever you want to call it, okay? This is what I think. But if they choose to go along with things that are gradually destroying them, we cannot intervene, because the laws of the universe have not been broken. And that is because the beings that control the matrix are geniuses, and they've been around a lot longer than us, and they've been controlling us from a very early time, and they've limited us gradually to where we have lost all our knowledge. It's still there. Little bits of it is still there, but most of us don't access it because we not only wouldn't believe it, we might not even be able to. Most of us don't have the time to study everything. In fact, it wouldn't have even happened to me. I would be still in the total dark about everything if the matrix had not come down on me so solidly. And that, I think, is because I'm not going to go there, but I will say this, that all beings or all humans that are on this earth are not actually all the same. And there again, we're going into another realm. It'd be a bit like this lady is going to clone her dog, right? I saw it on the TV, so it's okay for me to talk about it. She's going to clone her dog because it's dead and she can't live without it. And she's such a wonderful person. Of course, she wants to keep that lovely animal. She's going to clone it. Of course, cloning is not really the same as having that animal brought back to life. It will appear to be, but it's actually not, because the spirit of the animal cannot be, you cannot clone a spirit, okay? So she will get the animal, it will look the same, it will probably act a bit similar, and etc., and she'll probably be happy with it, but it will not really be the same original animal. But, you know, this is what they are showing us, and what I'm trying to say is that I've lost my train of thought, to be quite frank. Because the matrix is distracting me. There's a big wind blowing up, which no doubt I might even be contributing to, because you see, human beings are creating, if they're angry subconsciously or if they get distracted, combined, they can even create probably catastrophes, but they would not know they're doing it, because if the matrix makes them angry or really low, this is what I'm saying. But what I was saying was that all humans are not actually the same. There are different types of humans. By that I mean that there again I have to be very careful, because I've already went into the genders and stuff. Look, authentic human beings are all spiritual human beings, but some are going to be more limited than others, just as I've been most of my life, and I still am. I'm not at the highest level that a human being can be at. I'm right down here when you're supposed to be up here, right? Right, in fact, limitless almost, maybe. But there are others who would even be further down than me, because they are not even remotely aware. Now, this means that, yeah, that once you get sometimes below a certain level, or if you are genetically slightly different, because there again, human beings, even though they're spiritual beings, the genetics of the body, I think, does make some of them have different abilities, okay? Like, well, you'd probably agree with me there that all human beings have different abilities, right? You know, like I might not be able to paint a masterpiece. I might not even be able to draw hardly a circle, okay, whereas someone else can do the Mona Lisa, etc. Okay, now, so by that I mean that the cloning of animals and even humans, because they can do that. They said they could do that years ago. And humans, if they are all different, they might not, they might, some human beings might be more, the matrix will try to bring some humans down more than others if they think that some human beings are going to be more spiritually aware and become more spiritually advanced, because then they will be able to connect a bit more closely with the other human beings, because like I say, we're all spiritual beings, we all create reality with our thinking, and we're all connected. And if a certain number of those became aware and then they started operating, they could take more control of the matrix. You see what I'm saying? And the matrix doesn't want that, so it has to keep all of us right down. But the ones that are starting to become more aware, the matrix will come down more heavily on them to try to prevent that expansion of knowledge and of the spiritual mind, to where we could have more control over this physical domain, you see, because at the moment we have none over it, and we are indoctrinated with the technology and directed, we're being directed along certain paths all the time, because there is a motive. The matrix operates for its own motive. The beings that control the matrix, even if they liked human beings, figure it out yourself. If my race is dying, even if I like the human beings, I'm still going to put my race first. Their technological need to go on, their need to preserve their race, is going to be greater than the survival of the human race for them. Just as if I'm a human, I will probably say, well, look, I don't have anything against the technological beings, and I'm sorry that they're dying, but I'm not going to let my human race be exterminated and taken down a technological path that will lead to their eventual extinction, just to save the technological beings, you see. So it works both ways. Now, humans have a choice, as I've said before. Please don't make the wrong choice. That's all I'm saying. Try to think about it, but how can you not make the wrong choice if you don't think you're a spiritual being, your thought creates reality, and you're all connected? If you think you are a human being that is technologically connected by the internet, a mobile phone, if you think that science has the solution to you living a longer life, and you don't think that you're a spiritual being that should be limitless and immortal, of course you are going to go with technology. You will serve the technological beings that control this matrix. You're already serving them. You're in the matrix. You're controlled. You should know that. You live in a rat race world. There's killing and death all around you. You know that there's violence everywhere. This is all the control of the matrix. Spiritual beings in their natural, normal state don't do this because they don't have to and they wouldn't want to. But we are all influenced by it. I get angry, I get hateful, I get resentful, I get jealous like everybody else my whole life. And I feel uncomfortable in this world and in this body and all the rest of it. And that's the trick of the matrix. That's how they want you to be. That's how we all are. That's how I am. All I'm saying is that I can see now that it's not right. So what are we going to do about it? Can we do anything about it? Will we continue to make the wrong choices? Will we continue to go with the matrix, the mind control and physical matrix we live in, that we know is limited because it restricts us every day? And we restrict ourselves because we, as I say, with free choice, we say, oh, well, yeah, I think it would be better if we watch one another a bit more. I think it would be better if we had a bit more physical power, a bit more police, a bit more security, a bit more army, a bit more control, a bit more what we call security. You know, and there again, I'm against that because I say, hey, you know, why do I want to be secure against my other spiritual beings that I'm connected to? And like I say, I've been alone all my life. So this I still cannot connect to. I know it to be true. And I want to connect because I know that it's true. But I don't know how because I have been indoctrinated and made to feel like an outcast, a loner, and, you know, nervous, shy, uncomfortable, even with my fellow human beings. This is the indoctrination of the matrix through my life. And this is what happens to all of us. It happens differently for each person according to the personality because they know your personality. They know from the minute you're born your genetics, your abilities, how you're going to, and they also can see, no doubt, very technologically beings can see timelines. They know your every thought, your every feeling, your every move. And now we give it over to them even at a physical awareness level, in the sense that we have accepted the internet. We have accepted the invasion of our privacy. We have accepted security cameras everywhere. Whereas in the past, that's why I say we have to go back, because in the past at least we had a little bit more freedom because we valued our privacy and we thought, oh, my thoughts are my own at least, you know, but we're actually giving it over to them. And yet they already have that. They already have the ability to invade your mind. You know, there's technology there that we're even aware of. You know, like, I'm just going to go there and say that everyone knows that in the past they did experiments with mind control. They did experiments with various things that they even apologised where they experimented on humans. They've done it in mental asylums down through the ages. They've done it, we've allowed it, and some of it has even been secret, but there again, it's still allowed. And then when it's exposed, we say, oh, that was awful, but at least they've stopped that now, so it's okay. Oh, they cloned Dolly the sheep, but they haven't cloned anything since. Oh, they do this, they do that, but it's okay now. This is because we are innocent and trusting. And I was that way too. But now I see that you can still be a spiritual human being, but you don't have to be blind and trusting of beings that are out for their own survival at the expense of yours. This is how I see it now, and I'm very stressed in saying this, and my body is aching. Yes, so I should want the the technological future that they offer. I'm saying that that is a deception, that my suffering now, that's right, is the deception to want to go with technology. But it is a deception, it's a trap. And the body, even, I shouldn't even be like this. This is because the matrix is so everything that is in the matrix is not conducive to a healthy body. We accept the genetic food. We've gone away from natural. The only way that the spiritual being can survive long term, even in this fake, real, when I say fake real, I mean fake, solid, physical world that we live in, is through nature and through what is natural, because that does help the body and the spirit to survive longer. Everything that is genetically or technically changed, modified, artificial, whatever, degrades this organic human body. The technological beings were organic originally, and they went into technology to where they advanced to technology to astronomical heights. And now they are becoming extinct. They're dying. And they're going to use us to keep going, to keep their technology going for longer. And we will die. This is how I see it. It's dramatic, it's terrible, and it just come to me and look at the movies. But you will have to look at them, and it's very hard because I know that only so long ago I couldn't have done it. So I understand that for me to say, look at the movies and say that is the real reality and there's truth in that. Oh, I know that it's almost impossible for you to do because I couldn't have done it myself only long ago, not that long ago. And I'm like, how do we get for us all to see it? Because if we all see it, then we can not only control this fake reality and have it how we want it, but we can go and do whatever we want. Because we are spiritual beings, we're really meant to be free, and we create. This is the message even of some of our religious spiritual beings that came here on occasion. They were not trying to get us to bow down to one God. The one God that we bow down to is the God of the matrix, the one that controls this physical world. That is the true God of this world, of this matrix, this control matrix, because he controls it. And it's a he too. That's another point. I emphasize that it's a he. It's not a female. And that is another thing too, another issue. But think about that, because the world is much more going, much more he rather than she. Now you might say, oh, well, yeah, no, that's not true, because women are doing like men. That's my point. The she is becoming the he. The God that controls the matrix is a he. He does not want the male-female, and does not want the male-female reproduction. He wants a technological human being that can take over the spiritual part of the human being to where they can access it and prolong their technological life. Not our spiritual life, their technological life, because they are a dying race. Have a look at some of the movies. I could mention names. I haven't seen them all, watch very little, but now because I'm looking for it, because I know the agenda, because I see it, because it's been put onto me. I'm not smarter than everyone else, believe you me, I'm dumber than most people. But if something is put right in your face, because in my case, it was put in my face. A bit like I say, if you're someone who doesn't believe in aliens, but you walk around the corner and you bump into one, you're not smarter than the person that doesn't believe they exist. That person might be a genius. You might be an idiot, but you've seen the alien, they haven't. So you've got the upper hand, even low. That person could be one of your top scientists, could be a genius. You could be below average intelligence, but you've seen the alien, so you automatically know more than them now anyway. You see what I'm saying? That's how it is. That's how it was with me, okay? I'm not saying I saw the alien. I'm not going to, that's just an example, okay? But it's the same thing. It's the same thing. In other words, if something's put in your face, you don't have to be smart. But most people, it's not put in their face. They have to look for it. This is the problem. I've had it put in my face, but now I look for it and say, hey, that just justifies. And that just tells me that, hey, what is in my face, which I already know to be real, but then if I see it everywhere else as well, I'm like, hey, there's no doubt, 100%. Okay? Hope you've got something out of it, because it takes a lot out of me. I wish the world wasn't like this. And to realise now, see, I thought this world, even a few years ago, I thought, oh, I can live in this world. It's not great, but I'm going to struggle on because life is still good. Even at the physical level, like I'll just go a few years. I've even done some wrong things just to struggle on for that few years, thinking it was so important. Now I realise a whole big deception. Yeah. Big, more mistakes, to do negative things just to survive for a few years, when that's really the deception, you know. And even now I'm still finding it hard because I'm in the physical body. I know that there is more, but I don't see it. So it is blind faith, a bit like they do teach in religion in a funny kind of way. But you have to know it. You do have to sort of almost feel it. And the old thing of intuition, yeah, intuition is much greater than intellect. Even Einstein said that, I believe. And that's the truth. Whereas we place intellect and logic above intuition. We are spiritual beings, so those things are the truth. But we do not recognise intuition as truth. We believe that if we get intuition, oh, it may or may not be right. And most of the time we'll go, I'll go with the logic, I'll go with the intellect, I'll go with what I'm told. That makes, because we are trapped and have been controlled by the technology, the technological God, this matrix, to make us believe that we do not know anything, but that science knows everything, that logic is the thing to be respected, that intellect is more important than intuition. Funny thing is, if you look at it in another way, I've said this before, common sense, which most people used to have even a few years ago, has flown out the window on most things anyway. This is what I find strange. I do not see any common sense in this intellectual, so-called technical world that we live in anyway. I do not see it anywhere. Even at just a basic level, if this real world was as real as what we think, I think common sense has flown right out the window for most people. And yet only a few years back, every single person on the street almost had a reasonable amount of common sense. No one does now, hardly anyone. They see something, and what would have just been common sense to them a few years back, they're like, oh no, I'll go and look that up on the computer. They believe, in fact, almost to the point to where what was in front of them, they would dispute unless they go onto their computer and their mobile phone and can vindicate it by that. You know, that I find strange these days, and to me that's backward too, in a funny kind of way. But at any rate, I better go because I'm exhausted, and I'm sure that I have got everything muddled up for you. I wish I could put it more coherently. I would advise that you look at a lot more videos. Look at the world as you see it and say, apart from them saying, oh, it's free to be able to do what we want and everyone do everything, say, is it a good idea though? That's perhaps what I would say. I would even say to people who are considering changing themselves, say, is it really a good idea? And don't forget, if you look at statistics, even on some of these things, they don't show you the statistics. Like I heard the other day, and there again, you'll have to, there again, you have to know whether to even believe the statistics. I don't believe anything, but they did say a statistic that 30% of people who even change sex admit they made a mistake down the track. And that's only what they tell you. So, and don't forget, if you did change sex right, and then you had a successful life because of it, even if there was a part of you that felt spiritually uncomfortable at some point, you'd keep going with it, because in this matrix world, it would be to your benefit. In other words, if I was a man and I changed myself into a beautiful woman and I started making money out of being a beautiful woman, even if I feel a little bit uncomfortable or sad in my subconscious, I'm still going to keep going with that, because I'm going to say, hey, well, at least I got all the goodies, and at least I'm getting a bit of adulation, a bit of this. You know what I'm saying? So that's another trap, I think, of the matrix for people too, because there's always going to be some benefits as well, but that's not the spiritual thing, as I say. It's a separate issue. Anyway, I've got to go now. Like I say, just observe as much as you can. Try to look at things that you think are a bit fantastic, because as I said before, you have to be given free choice, so you have to be shown the truth. So open our eyes and look for it. And don't dismiss and don't believe everything. Say, is that not a possibility? Just think about, and you'll have to really think though. You'll have to do like I just said, where I automatically said, oh, they're talking about cloning a dog. This was only yesterday on the TV. And I'm like, but they cloned Dolly the sheep years and years and years ago. What's happened in all that time? Nothing. Why are they now letting humans think that it's okay to clone, even like animals? They want you to go down a certain path, because, just think about that. But you wouldn't think about it, because you just get on there and, like most people, say, oh, right, I've got a lot of money, so I love my animal and it's dead. I think I would like to bring it back to life, rather than go and save another one from the shelter that's already, or that's still got its spirit and is alive and needs, the same with adoption, as opposed to genetically making children too. What about all the children that need adopt? You see, all these things. I mean, it just, it's not my business. It's not for me to tell people what to do, but I'm saying what is best for the human race, not about personal things. That's the problem in this world, is that we're all about ourselves, which we all are, and it's all about individuals. But what I'm saying is that it's no good you even being selfish and having what you want for yourself, if it will lead to your extinction and your kids' extinction that you've artificially made or whatever down the track. You're really beating your head against a wall, is what I'm trying to say anyway, because you're deceived by the matrix. This is all a joke. They see the future. They control everything. You are not master of your own domain. You are not master of your own body or anything. We do not control anything. I do not have any control over it. All I can do is know when the mind parasites are trying to influence me and say, hey, I heard that bad thought. I saw that bad idea. I saw this. I heard it. Am I going to believe it and keep it as a part of me, or am I going to reject it? That's really all you can do, because you can't stop the mind parasites from coming in. No, because the technology and the God rules. You cannot stop that. Don't deceive yourself, as I've done, and we all do, where we think, oh no, my thoughts are my own. I'm a free being. I'm this. You're not. None of us are. Some might have more freedom than others, and that makes for me being jealous, yes, to where then I'm, once again, then in the matrix, jealous of someone else against my fellow human being, and I could do that every day. And I have done it, and I still do it, even this very minute, but I know it's wrong, and I know it's also not the true picture. But that's all part of it too. Like I say, it's so complicated and so difficult. That's why I say you've got to try to keep it simple. Just accept the basic facts. We're spiritual human beings in a physical body for this limited time that we're here. Our thought is supposed to create reality combined with other spiritual human beings. Together, combined at a spiritual level, we could probably move mountains. And the beings that control this world know this, but they have control of my mind and yours and of our feelings, because our feelings also create the reality, our emotions. And, as I've said before, we do not have full control of our whole mind, even our thinking. We have the subconscious and the conscious mind. Everyone knows that. We do not have access to our subconscious mind. That was taken from us a long time ago, cut off from us. So we create subconsciously, so we don't actually know what we're creating. But you can be sure that if I'm angry right now, as I am, then I'm sending out negative, destructive subconscious thinking. You see what I'm saying? And that, combined with all my friends and neighbours and everyone around me also being affected by the matrix and probably feeling not too good about different things, even if you have an argument with someone. It's all negative, destructive, creative thinking. But you don't know your thinking is creating. Very difficult for us to get control of it. Very difficult. We have really been put into a very dark position that we're not aware of. I mean, we really have been suppressed. We're the most suppressed, I would say, we're probably the most suppressed beings anywhere. And yet we are spiritual beings who are meant to be really high. And we are suppressed by lesser beings. They are our gods. They always have been. Even if you take the fake histories, what you think of the fake histories, the civilizations that have gone and fell, they worship different gods. Those gods were less than them, or less than what the human being had the capability to be. But they ruled the humans, and they still do. And they will continue to, while we, by free choice, accept it and allow it and continue on in ignorance, which is not our fault, because how do you find the truth when you are surrounded by so much lies and deception? It's not easy for anyone. Not easy at all.